So, kind of a big announcement.
Uh-oh.
This is the last week of us recording.
Oh, God.
New episodes.
Yeah.
For the Horrific Podcast. Season the 13th.
Fooled you, bitches.
Yeah. You won't be rid of us that easy, but we are going to move on, finally.
And I gotta say, it's been a pleasant season of the 13th. It was a big debate because, like, I wanted to keep this thing going. And so after this last section, I was just like, I gotta find something. And you were the same. And neither one of us were just like, I think we did it. Like, I think it's done. 6 months worth of it, guys. That's insane. Well, wait, 8 months. I don't know math.
What year is it? Also, talking about cults for a month and a half is depressing as hell. So I feel like we kind of need to break out and do something different. This has definitely been, I think, the most interesting season to me that we've done so far. But I am excited to take some of the things we've learned from this and maybe like apply it to the larger horror context and get back into branching out a little bit.
Yeah. Give us a better understanding.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Not have to do so much reading every week because
reading blows.
Trying to figure out like how these different subgenres changed over time and then fitting that into like a narrative and then picking the movies that help support that narrative and then, you know, figuring out all of the additional stuff to talk about to make it more of like a story arc rather than just like picking a movie every week. It's been fun. It's been informative. It's also been a lot of work. So
yeah. You gotta think of it like this too. Like, we're strictly doing this for fun. Like, we're paying to do this. Like, we get nothing from this at all, which is okay. I guess just our friendship. But
what we get is the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, that's true. But
life is a journey, not a destination.
Did you just come up with that? Read my
Absolutely
lips,
not.
Daniel. Look at me in the eyes. Read my lips. That's the best thing I've ever heard.
Hey, somebody should write a song like that. But yeah, we're here. We're wrapping it up. We're going to do a quick recap of season the 13th and kind of go back through all of the different horror subgenres that we explored. And then, yeah, next week we will be back to kick off something brand new that'll be totally different, but we're not going to talk about that today. So figured we could just kind of take our time and slowly work our way through it and just see what were the things that really stood out to us over this last long season that had lots of ups and downs. So yeah, let's start and let's just go through them in order. Let's go through the different subgenres that we have explored this season and our journey. It's a little hard to remember because it's been a hot minute. Began with zombies.
Zombies back on January 16th, 2023.
If only I knew then what I know now.
Goodness, man. You say that again. Yeah, so we started with White Zombie.
The zombies one was one of the most interesting just because I had never really sat down and thought about how zombie movies progressed over time. Like, I definitely knew there were different types of zombie movies. Yep. But the idea that, you know, for a long time before Night of the Living Dead, zombies were mostly portrayed in a totally different way in movies. And then that movie basically came along and was just like, nope, this is what we're doing now. And everybody just kind of got in line from that point forward. Mm-hmm. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, so my thought is like, that's almost like you're up in the MLB. You know, you're in the major leagues, you know, is when that film came along. I'm not saying it wasn't like that for like White Zombie necessarily. It's just like there's a different level, and this movie kind of hit it and then set the stage for what was coming next. So it's almost like drafting a player, number one, that you know is going to be good. Might be a little rocky at start, but after a few years, it's going to come out. And that's basically what it was with Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, I had always liked that movie a lot. but I didn't fully appreciate its impact. And honestly, I feel kind of similarly about 28 Days Later, in that I always liked the movie. I always liked a lot of things about the way it was made, but I had never really stopped to appreciate its kind of place in the development of zombie movies and sort of their portrayal in just everything that was to come over the next like decade and a half that was zombie everything. And that movie is still just reconfirmed kind of one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, and you know, I was thinking about it, and this might only be true for like one or two of them, but like I felt like the zombie genre is a little bit easier for us to measure the changes. Like you could see the progression, like anyone can kind of see the progression. Yeah, and so like this section, I was extremely cocky going into many of the other genres, and then I think when we got to cults, I was just like, God, it's difficult to see like
right,
like how has it changed kind of thing, because it's yeah. But with this one, I was definitely excited anyway, just because this is my jam. Zombies, I love them.
Yeah. After that, we got into slashers, and this one, like, it was really fun to revisit because I feel like a lot of the kind of classic slasher movies we watched really early on. Mm-hmm. So going back and watching them again, having, however many years worth of experience that we've been doing this show, kind of brought a fresh light to them. And so it was fun to revisit, but also in retrospect, I kind of wish we'd branched out a little more. I think we were still trying to tell the story and using the movies to do that, and like the really big influential ones. But I kind of wish we'd gotten into some that were maybe a little more like inspired and typical of the time, but not like the big ones that everybody knows. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but at the same time, I wanted to watch them.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't regret it. I'm just thinking for like the purposes of
no, absolutely.
It made me it got me in the mood to watch slasher movies, but we just kind of watched ones that for the most part we'd already seen, and then we were moving on to something else, so I didn't really have a chance to like get in there and do it while I was inspired. So I think in a future season we need to go back and watch other movies that could have been on this list but weren't.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the thing with slashers, or what we were kind of thinking going into it, was more so like, let's discuss those characteristics of those slashers, since those have, slashers have rules. And so I think that kind of tied into some of the movie selections. But I love the idea of doing that, though, like going in deep into slashers, even non-horror slasher that could be considered slashers, I think would be cool.
Yeah, I'm into it.
As rules, man.
Yeah. After that, we got into haunted houses. And I will say that really made me appreciate the creativity of the genre in a way, or the subgenre, in a way that I haven't before.
Mm-hmm. This was
go ahead.
This was one of like the surprising ones I had, where I was like one of the ones I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I did. And I did enjoy it thoroughly.
Yeah, there were a couple duds there towards the end, but overall, I think my biggest takeaway is that like the haunted house formula leaves a lot of room for a lot of creativity. It's almost like writing a poem that has rules sometimes yields really like interesting creative results, like haikus. Mm-hmm. Like the challenge of keeping to that formula but still doing something interesting. When people rise to the occasion, it has like really cool outputs.
Yeah.
But I do also think that some people don't try to rise to the occasion and just try to make a movie in the formula, and those are rough and terrible. So I think probably a lot of our perception about haunted house movies, or like why we went into it not as excited, is because there are a lot of haunted house movies out there that are just kind of paint by the numbers and not that interesting.
Right. You can get burned pretty easy with that, with haunted house movies.
Yeah, but our little mini series on it kind of made me think some of them could be worth taking the chance on. So I'm a little more open to it, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. I mean, just where we started out, like from a YouTube clip,
Yeah.
from 1886.
Yeah.
You know, and then we ended on, you know, Winchester in 2018. It's amazing how long, you know, I mean, haunted houses, we discussed this in that series, but like, you know, they've been around for forever, since houses have been around. I'm sure that's just a guess. I can't see it being around before then, but maybe.
Well, they were haunted caves for a while.
That's true. That's a good point. They probably had haunted cave drawings, but you know, they've been around for forever. And it's just kind of, first off, cool to see the lineage, but actually, I think I enjoyed it. You're right with, like, I think it was like the last two. I don't remember Ghostwatch, so that may have been not so good. But
loved Ghostwatch. That was the one that was like the BBC broadcast.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I forgot about that one. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was really just 13 Ghosts in Winchester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
happens.
And I feel like 13 Ghost had a lot of really creative ideas. I just didn't think the execution was great. So
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I would be perfectly happy to go back and do more haunted house movies in the future, just kind of from the same perspective that we have after doing this one.
Well, it's exciting too, because as long as we've been doing this, like, you know, Ghostwatch just came in, well, I guess for me, just came into like my knowledge of it. I don't remember when you first heard it, but like, it's just kind of cool. So it's like, yeah, we should do that. Let's figure out some other ones that we haven't seen that we're going to potentially like too.
Yeah, for sure. And then we got into monsters, big and small, of this world and outside of it, and snakes.
Feature.
So I will say Alien still stands out to me as an exemplary horror movie after going back to it. And Predator was also really fun.
It was fun.
And then going back and watching kind of like the giant monster movies was kind of a cool, like, you know, get back to your roots type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this is the one that probably left me the least inspired to pursue more monster movies. Like, I enjoyed the ones that we did, but I don't feel like I need to go out and just like watch every monster movie I can get my hands on, you know?
You think that's because we ended... Whoa, didn't we end on like a... Oh, wait, no, we didn't end on it. I was just going to ask, is it because we had like a new one in it, you know? So we did the Godzilla vs. King Kong 2021 in it. So like we saw like, okay, well, this is where it's going. Mm-hmm. And I just don't have interest to see where.
I was more along the lines of like Anaconda slaps and nothing's going to top it, so why bother?
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that makes sense then. Checks out.
No, I made that joke take way longer than it should have. But I do want to go back and watch more of the Alien and Predator series. I think it would be fun to dig into that a little bit more. But I don't think I need to go see every Godzilla movie, for example.
Yeah. Until the next monster, you know, hey, I'm sure there'll be another. I don't know. Do you think monster movies are like done because of like the MCU universe? Like any monster in a movie is killed by a superhero now?
Yeah, probably. But that's what kind of, I don't know, stood out to me about like Alien and Predator and kind of like the Alien, I guess, sci-fi horror monster movies, was just that I feel like there's still some mystery, and it sort of reflects like where we're at as a society. Like the stuff that's on the earth and above sea level, it's kind of like we feel like we understand pretty well, but there's still that like imagination aspect that you can really work with when it comes to, you know, space or I guess deep sea. So those are some interesting things where I feel like there's still room to kind of do something new and exciting.
Yeah, that's true. I'm glad we ended with the Anaconda though.
Yeah, it was fun to go back to. That movie, it is still lovable in all the ways that I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I guess there's no getting around it. There's only one thing left to talk about.
The weather?
Yeah, dude, it's hot. It is terrifyingly hot. The weather in Texas right now is horrific.
Yeah.
And so are Colts.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, the Colts kind of beat my ass, man.
Yeah. There was just really not, especially when we got to the end of the miniseries on cults, and they started being like way more directly inspired by real life. They just got super depressing. Like they were still like horror movies, but they were just, there was no. A lot of times when I watch a horror movie, I'm like, whoa, that was great, that was creative, that was cool what they did with it. Like, I can't believe the director made me feel that way. Like this, they succeeded in creating a scary movie, which is a hard thing, like a truly scary movie, which is a hard thing to do. With these, it was more just like, oh man,
yeah,
humans.
it was like watching documentary.
Yeah, which we also did as part of it.
Yeah, that was my bad. No, I think I'm glad that we actually threw that in there though, because like I think it's important. Like, I think that cults are gnarly, and if I don't know, it's just important for me to let people know how bad they can be, I guess.
Yeah, and again, audio magic. I'm not sure when this is going to be posted versus when we're talking, but definitely probably spring 2019. But just now, Netflix released a new series called How to Become a Cult Leader, and it basically goes through all of the big ones that came up during ours. I don't think they talked about The Work, but basically everybody else that we mentioned over the course of that miniseries is at least brought up in that one, which was pretty wild. Oh, and I also remember there was that movie called The Lodge. Do you remember that one?
I remember it. Yes.
So it was super, super, super inspired by the Heaven's Gate cult. And so one thing that I meant to bring up at some point in there, like towards the end when we were talking about these movies that were inspired by real life cults, that's another good example. And there's also a really good documentary about the Heaven's Gate cult on Max right now. And if you have seen that, then I feel like that movie hits a lot harder. And I don't think I realized at the time when we watched it that you didn't know anything about them. But I think that's something that made that movie a lot creepier for me.
The one with the lady who had like the stepkids at the cabin. Oh, okay.
Yeah, from like a few years ago.
Yeah. Oh, that's a cult thing?
Yeah, so remember you find out more about her background and how she had grown up in a cult or whatever.
Yeah.
Even some of like the costuming and stuff in the flashbacks were direct recreations of like the crime scene footage after their mass suicide. So it was a lot to take in,
Yeah. This was a little intense, but we made it through, I guess.
Yeah. It really feels like we should have covered more topics after doing this for like 7 months, but
episode a week, man.
Yeah, so it goes.
I guess we added two extra weeks in there. I think that the thing is, like, one of the reasons why I think I was struggling to come up is like, well, we could do like, it's the definition piece of it. It's like, well, we could do like, we have a whole section on Dracula if we wanted to, but could that have technically been monster? Like, instead of just dealing with that, I think we were just like, okay, well, it's been 6 months. We could come back and do a very similar season considering we own the podcast. So, it's just like, let's take a breather from this and get back to it.
But this was fun. It was a good exploration of these topics that I feel like are going to make us more prepared to talk about them in the future. And I feel like we also covered a pretty good swath of like a lot of movies that we're going to watch from this point forward could kind of fall at least a little bit into one of these, even though a lot of movies aren't made to be only one of these.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm excited to pay more attention to moving forward, is movies that kind of like cross the boundaries and how they take influences from multiples of these horror subgenres that are like normal of those subgenres at the time, and then combine them into new ways that are interesting. So, little something to pay attention to moving forward.
Yeah. I learned a whole lot.
I learned a lot about horror movies. I learned a lot about horror subgenres. And as always, learned a lot about my good friend Tom. So I will say this has been a good use of time.
You're damn right. I learned a lot about myself too, man.
Also, I vote that the next season we do lasts like 5 episodes, because season the 13th kind of wore out its welcome. I think we need a palate cleanser, and then we'll get back into something harder. But
yeah, I think
that is not a this week discussion. That's a next week discussion. Because right now, I'm closing the book on season the 13th.
Oh, I thought you were clapping. You know I'm a sympathetic clapper, dude. If I hear clapping and no one else is clapping, I gotta clap too, because I feel bad for the clapper. It was awkward when I was at a state execution once.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.
It's recording.
I have kind of a big announcement to make.
Uh-oh.
This is the last week of the Horrific Podcast. Making new episodes for season 13.
Oh, thank God. Season the 13th.
Season the 13th. Yeah. We are
Let's do this again. Let's do that.
We're wrapping it up. Okay.